The window shattered like my heartbeat in that frozen second. Glass exploding inward as his silhouette burst through. Bloodied fists clenched against the night. "Alex, wake up! It's me! Don't scream!" he gasped, collapsing onto my bed in a tangle of shadows and desperation. His breath hot against my neck like a secret I wasn't ready to keep. In that dorm room haze of stale pizza and unspoken regrets, I realized the boy I'd buried in my chest for years had just clawed his way back to life, and nothing, family, fear, or the fragile walls of who we were supposed to be, would ever hold him down again. I bolted upright, heart slamming against my ribs like it was trying to escape the same way he had, from whatever hell had driven him here in the dead of night. The room spun for a beat, posters of indie bands curling at the edges from the humidity of another sticky New York autumn. My roommate sighed empty because Jake was off chasing tail at some frat party across campus at NYU. And there was Ethan, my stepbrother, sprawled across my lap like a storm that had finally broken. His t-shirt torn at the shoulder, a gash above his eye weeping red onto my gray sheets. "What the fuck, Ethan?" I whispered, my voice cracking like cheap thunder, hands hovering over him because touching him felt like crossing a line we'd drawn in invisible ink years ago. He winced, propping himself up on one elbow, those hazel eyes, always too sharp, too knowing, locking onto mine in the dim glow of my desk lamp. "Dad found out. About everything. He lost it, Alex. Smashed the truck window with a bat. Came at me like I was the devil himself." His words hung there, jagged and raw, slicing through the air between us. Everything. That single word carried the weight of 1,000 stolen glances. Late-night confessions whispered over burner phones when our parents weren't listening. The ache of growing up in the same house but worlds apart. Ethan, the golden boy of our blended family, captain of the high school lacrosse team in suburban Jersey, straight as the turnpike until he wasn't. And me, the quiet artist kid with paint under my nails and a sketchbook full of his face, hidden in lockers at school and now buried under textbooks in this shoebox dorm. I grabbed the first aid kit from under my bed, the one I'd stocked after a bad fall during freshman orientation, ironic now, and started dabbing at the cut with gauze, my fingers trembling against his skin. It was warm, alive, the kind of touch that sent sparks up my arm like faulty wiring. "Call the cops," I said, trying to sound steady, but my voice betrayed me, soft as the rain starting to patter against the fire escape outside. He shook his head, grabbing my wrist gently, his thumb brushing the inside where my pulse betrayed me. "Can't. Mom's with him. She'd never believe it was his fault. Thinks I'm the one who chose this. Chose. As if loving who you love was a goddamn elective. We'd met at 13. Thrown together when my mom married his dad after whirlwind romances that felt more like rebounds than fate. Picture it. A split level in Edison, New Jersey, with faded Mets flags in the yard, and the hum of the Garden State Parkway as our lullaby. I was the skinny kid from Brooklyn, dragged out of the city after Dad bailed for some artists' commune in Vermont, leaving Mom to piece together a life with takeout and temp jobs. Ethan was the all-American poster child, broad-shouldered even then, with a smile that could charm teachers into extra credit and girls into giggling fits at the mall. From day one, he was my shadow and my shield, defending me from bullies who called me Fairy in the hallways, sharing mixtapes of The Killers and Fall Out Boy under the covers during thunderstorms. But puberty hit like a freight train, and suddenly those glances lingered too long. His hand on my shoulder felt like fire, and I knew I was gay before I even had the words for it. By high school, we were a secret ecosystem. I'd sketch him during study hall, capturing the way his jaw tightened when he laughed, the freckles across his nose like constellations I mapped in the dark. He'd sneak into my room after lights out, talking about college dreams, him to Rutgers on a sports scholarship, me to NYU on whatever grants I could scrape. "You're the smart one, Alex," he'd say, flopping beside me on the twin bed that creaked under our weight. "Gonna make it big, paint the world or some shit." And I'd nod, heart in my throat, because what I wanted to paint was him. Us. Tangled in colors we couldn't name. But we never crossed that line. Not really. A hug that lasted a beat too long. His head on my shoulder during a family movie night when everyone else was asleep. forbidden fruit in the garden state. Now, here he was, 21 and unraveling in my dorm like a bad dream I didn't want to wake from. I helped him peel off the shirt, wincing at the bruises blooming purple across his ribs. Fist marks, boot prints, the ugly poetry of a father's rage. Jesus, Ethan? I murmured, tracing the edges with antiseptic that stung us both. He caught my hand again, holding it there against his chest, where I could feel the thunder of his heart sinking with mine. I couldn't go anywhere else. You're home, Alex. Always have been. The words cracked something open in me, a dam I'd built with denial and distance, and for the first time since he climbed through that window, I let myself look at him. Not as my stepbrother, not as the guy who'd promised we'd always have each other's backs, but as the man who'd haunted every half-finished canvas in my portfolio. We talked until the rain turned to a drizzle, the city outside humming with distant sirens and the low rumble of the subway. He told me how it started unraveling 6 months ago, after he came out to a couple buddies on the team. Whispers turned to shouts, and Dad big, bellowing frank with his union job and Sunday barbecues. Overheard at a family dinner. "You're throwing away everything I built for you," he'd roared, chairs scraping back like nails on a chalkboard. Mom, sweet Ellen with her perm and pot roast, had cried, clutching her cross necklace like it could exorcise the truth. Ethan had bolted to a buddy's place in Philly, crashing on couches and dodging calls. But tonight, Dad tracked him down, dragged him back to Jersey for a talk that ended in blood. "I thought college would fix it," he said, voice hollow as he stared at the ceiling fan whirring lazy circles. "Get away, be who I am. But it's like the world's rigged against it. Against us." That word again, slipping out like it belonged there. I swallowed hard, the air thick with the scent of his cologne. Something woodsy and cheap from the drugstore, and the metallic tang of blood. "You're not alone," I said finally, the words tasting like truth and terror. "Not anymore." And in that moment, as the first gray light of dawn crept through the blinds, I leaned in, pressing my forehead to his, our breaths mingling like a promise we couldn't take back. By morning, we'd patched him up as best we could, bandages from the kit, a spare hoodie of mine that hung loose on his frame, and he was crashing on the futon Jake wouldn't miss. I skipped my 9 a.m. figure drawing class, texting the prof some bullshit about food poisoning, and instead brewed coffee in the communal kitchen down the hall, black and bitter like the knot in my gut. What now? Call Mom? She'd freak, but she'd listen, to me at least. Ethan was family, blended or not, and she'd always had a soft spot for the sensitive one. But as I handed him the mug, steam curling up like ghosts, he looked at me with eyes that stripped away the years, the pretenses, the what-ifs. "Thanks, Alex, for this." His hand brushed mine, lingering, and electricity hummed where our skin met, a current we'd both ignored for too long. The days blurred into a fragile routine. Ethan holed up in the dorm, venturing out only for late-night walks along Washington Square Park, where buskers strummed covers of Hosier and the air smelled of pretzels and possibility. I introduced him as my cousin from Jersey, a half-truth that stuck in my throat, and my friends, artsy types with dyed hair and opinions on everything from queer theory to the best falafel truck, bought it without question. But Lila, my roommate's girlfriend who crashed more than she should, narrowed her eyes one evening over takeout Thai. "Cousin, huh? He looks at you like you're the only star in his fucked-up sky." I laughed it off, heat rising in my cheeks, but her words lodged like a splinter. "Nights were the hardest," Jake returned, oblivious and hungover, claiming the futon and forcing Ethan into my bed. My narrow twin, where we'd end up shoulder to shoulder, the heat of him seeping through thin sheets like an accusation. We'd lie there, whispering about nothing and everything. His aborted dreams of pro lacrosse, my latest sculpture project, a twisted wire heart I couldn't explain. The way Dad's homophobia masked his own regrets from a youth cut short by early marriage and a mill job. "He wanted me to be him," Ethan said one night, voice muffled against the pillow. "Straight, strong, silent. But I can't, Alex. I won't." I turned toward him, the moonlight carving shadows across his face, and for the first time, I let my fingers trace the line of his jaw, soft as a confession. He didn't pull away. Instead, he sighed, a sound like surrender, and closed the distance, his lips brushing mine in a kiss that tasted of salt and salvation. It was tentative at first, a question wrapped in warmth, but it ignited something primal, a fire we'd banked for years under layers of brotherly bullshit. His hand cupped the back of my neck, pulling me closer, and I melted into it, the world narrowing to the rhythm of our breaths, the faint creak of the bed frame. No rush, no desperation. Just us, finally honest in the dark. When we broke apart, foreheads touching again, he whispered, "I've wanted this since we were kids. Scared shitless, but wanted it." Me too, I admitted silently, because saying it aloud felt like tempting fate. But in that dorm room, with the city pulsing outside like a heartbeat we shared, it felt possible. Like love wasn't a curse but a compass. Word spread, as it does in the echo chamber of college life. A leaked text from Ethan's phone, meant for a teammate, spilling about hiding out with family, hit the group chat, and suddenly, concerned calls from mom turned to outright panic. "Alex, honey, is Ethan there?" Frank's beside himself. Says he's mixed up with the wrong crowd. Wrong crowd. Code for the unspoken fear that had simmered since Ethan's coming out. That he'd drag me down with him, taint the normal kid in the family. I lied through my teeth, heart pounding as I paced the hall outside the room. Ethan listening from the door crack. "He's fine, Mom. Just visiting." But the lie tasted like ash, and when I hung up, he was there, arms wrapping around me from behind, chin on my shoulder. "We can't hide forever," he murmured, breath warm against my ear. "But I don't want to lose this. Lose you." The first crack came a week later, over pizza at Joe's on Carmine Street. We were laughing, actually laughing, about high school pranks, his knee bumping mine under the table in a way that felt electric, normal. Then his phone buzzed, and the color drained from his face. It was Dad, a voice message that crackled through the speaker before he could silence it. "Get your ass home, boy, or I'll come drag you myself. And tell that faggot stepbrother of yours to stay the hell out of it." The word landed like a slap, raw and venomous, turning the bustling pizzeria into a tomb. Ethan shoved the phone away, jaw clenched, but I saw the fracture. The way his eyes dulled, the shield cracking under the weight of a lifetime's conditioning. That night he pulled away, slept on the futon, back to me, a wall of silence thicker than the Jersey fog. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the message like a loop of bad film. Faggot. It wasn't new, whispers in locker rooms, slurs scrawled on my sketchbook in sophomore year, but hearing it aimed at us, at this fragile thing we'd just begun to nurture, it hollowed me out. By morning, he was packing a duffel, muttering about crashing with a distant cousin in Queens. "Just till I figure shit out," he said, avoiding my eyes. "Can't keep imposing, like our kiss was a burden, like love was something to apologize for." I grabbed his arm, desperation clawing up my throat. "Ethan, don't. We can fight this together." He looked at me then, really looked, and the pain in his gaze was a mirror to my own, twisted with fear, longing, the terror of what came next. "I love you, Alex," he said, voice breaking like glass underfoot. "But Dad's right about one thing. I'm poison. Always have been." And with that, he was gone, the door clicking shut like the end of a chapter one wasn't ready to close. The weeks that followed were a blur of hollow routines. Classes dragged. My brushes lay dry on the easel, every canvas mocking me with empty space. Jake noticed, of course. "Dude, you look like death warmed over. Spill." But I shrugged it off, burying the ache in late shifts at the campus coffee shop, steaming lattes for co-eds who chattered about midterms while I replayed Ethan's goodbye on loop. Mom called daily, her voice a tightrope of worry and denial. "Frank's sorry, Alex. He's just processing. Come home for Thanksgiving." Home. The word soured on my tongue. Home was the boy who'd climbed through my window, not the house where slurs echoed off linoleum floors. Then the betrayal hit, swift as a sucker punch. It was Lila who showed me the Instagram story, Ethan, arms slung around a girl from his old lacrosse circle, All smiles and craft beers at some tailgate in New Brunswick. "Look who's playing house," she said, handing me her phone with pity in her eyes. The caption, "Back where I belong, family first go nights." My stomach dropped, the image burning into my retinas. Him, laughing like the weight had lifted, like our nights in the dorm were a fever dream he'd shaken off. Betrayal. Not just the pose, the performance, but the erasure. I'd poured my soul into him, and he'd folded it away like yesterday's news. I confronted him via text, fingers flying in a rage of hurt. "Saw your story. Nice acting. Guess Dad won." No response for hours, then a call that lit up my screen like a flare. "Alex, it's not." He started, voice thick with static and something wetter. "Tears maybe. It's bullshit. A setup. Dad made me do it. Said if I didn't fix things, he'd cut me off. Tell everyone at school I'm unstable. Unstable." The word twisted like a knife. "So you just, what? Pretend we're nothing." Silence stretched, broken only by his ragged breathing. "I can't lose everything. Not yet. But you're not nothing. You're everything I can't have." The fight spilled out then, words like shrapnel. Accusations of cowardice, pleas for courage. The raw underbelly of love when it's tangled with blood and expectation. "Come back," I begged, voice cracking over the line. "We'll figure it out. Together." He hesitated, the pause a chasm. "I want to. God, Alex, I do. But what if I break you too? Break me." As if I wasn't already shattered, picking up pieces in a dorm that smelled like his ghost. Thanksgiving loomed like a storm cloud, pulling me back to Jersey against every instinct. The house was the same. Turkey in the oven, football on the TV. But the air crackled with unspoken grenades. Dad grunted hellos, avoiding my eyes, his knuckles still scabbed from that night. Mom fussed over place settings, her smile brittle as autumn leaves. Ethan was there, of course, seated across from me at the harvest table, looking like a stranger in his button-down and khakis. The girl from the photo, Katie, bubbly sorority type, chattering beside him about wedding colors like it was a done deal. Dinner was a minefield. Small talk about classes, the weather, anything but the elephant with rainbow tusks in the corner. But under the table, Ethan's foot brushed mine. A deliberate nudge, an anchor in the chaos. I met his gaze, and there it was. The truth, flickering like a candle in wind. Katie excused herself to the kitchen, and in that sliver of space, he leaned close, whispering, "This isn't real. None of it." My hand found his under the tablecloth, squeezing until it hurt, a lifeline in the lie. The climax came that night, after pie and forced toasts. Dad cornered us in the garage, the air thick with oil and old resentments, his voice a low growl. "You two think you can play house up there in that fairy factory? Ruin everything." Ethan stepped forward, shoulders squaring like they had on the lacrosse field. "It's not a game, Dad. It's me. Us." The us hung there, bold and broken, and Dad's face twisted rage, regret. The sour milk of a man who'd buried his own truths under beer cans and bravado. Fists flew before words could, Dad lunging at Ethan with a bellow that shook the rafters. I jumped in, shoving between them, taking a wild swing to the jaw that tasted like copper and closure. "Enough!" I yelled, the word echoing like thunder. Mom burst in, screaming, pulling Dad back as neighbors' lights flicked on across the cul-de-sac. Ethan grabbed my arm, hauling me toward the door, blood trickling from a split lip, his or mine. I couldn't tell. We stumbled into the night, the cold biting like judgment, and ran. Down the block, past the park where we'd raced bikes as kids, to the old pickup he'd borrowed. We drove in silence, windows down, the parkway a ribbon of black under sodium lights. Tears came then, hot and unbidden, mixing with the rain on my face. "I'm sorry," he choked out, pulling over at a rest stop, the kind with vending machines and regret. "For all of it. The hiding, the photo, dragging you into this mess." I turned to him, the dashboard glow casting his features in soft blues. "You're not a mess, Ethan. You're mine." And I kissed him there, fierce and forgiving, the world outside fading to a hum. We didn't go back. Not that night, not ever in the same way. Mom called the next day, voice trembling but resolute. Your father's getting help. Therapy. For all of us. It was a start, fragile as eggshell, but real. Ethan transferred to NYU that spring. Art history of all things. Crashing officially in my dorm, no more futons or feigned cousinship. We navigated it slow. Therapy sessions in the village, pride marches down Fifth Avenue, sketches of him that I finally hung on the walls. It wasn't fairy tale easy. There were fights. Over Dad's half apologies. Katie's lingering texts. The ghost of what we'd lost. But in the quiet moments, tangled in sheets that smelled like us, it felt human. Flawed, fierce, full of grace. Love isn't a climb through windows or a shatter of glass. It's the choice to stay, to build from the shards. And in the heart of New York, where dreams clash like cabs in traffic, we chose each other. Every damn day. The city woke us early that first morning after the garage blowout, horns blaring like reveille from the streets below. Ethan stirred beside me in the pickup's cab, where we'd crashed in a truck stop lot off I-95. His arms slung heavy across my waist as if anchoring us to the vinyl seat. Dawn painted the dashboard in pinks and golds, filtering through the windshield smeared with bug guts and last night's rain. I watched him sleep, lashes fanned dark against freckled cheeks, the bruise on his lip already swelling purple like a bad omen. We'd run, but from what? A father unmoored by his son's truth, a mother torn between devotion and denial, a family fractured like the Jersey Turnpike after a nor'easter. And us, two boys who danced around desire for years, now flung into the freefall of it. He woke with a start, hazel eyes snapping open, hand instinctively reaching for a lacrosse stick that wasn't there. Alex! My name came out rough, gravelly from disuse, and it hit me like sunlight, warm, disorienting. Yeah, right here. I shifted, wincing at the kink in my neck, but his touch lingered, thumb tracing idle circles on my hip through denim. No words for a beat, just the rumble of semis gearing up outside, the faint crackle of a CB radio from the diner across the lot. Then he smiled, crooked and tentative, the kind that crinkled his eyes and made my chest ache with something too big for bones to hold. We did it, kicked the hornet's nest and lived. We hit the road before the coffee shops opened, heading north toward the city like fugitives with no real plan. The radio spat classic rock, Springsteen wailing about Born to Run glory, and Ethan cranked it, belting Thunder Road off-key until I joined in, our voices tangling over the wind whipping through cracked windows. Laughter bubbled up then, hysterical and healing, the absurdity of it all crashing like waves. Bloodied lips, a father's fury, two stepbrothers stealing away in a rust bucket Ford like some queer Bonnie and Clyde. By the time we crossed the George Washington Bridge, the skyline rising sharp against the Hudson, the knot in my gut had loosened just enough to breathe. NYU swallowed us back like an old friend, the dorm a sanctuary of scuffed linoleum and communal laundry dread. Jake was out, bless his oblivious soul, when we tumbled in, Ethan hauling his duffel like a man returning from war. "This is home now?" he asked, dropping onto the futon with a theatrical groan. I nodded, tossing him a spare key from my lanyard. Ours. No more climbing through windows. He caught it, fingers brushing mine, and pulled me down beside him. The kiss that followed soft as forgiveness, tasting of diner donuts and dawn promises. But reality nosed in quick, all teeth and no mercy. Mom's calls escalated from worried voicemails to full-on interventions. Her voice tinny through the speakerphone as Ethan and I huddled over low main in the room. "Alex, please, talk to your father. He's seeing a counselor. Says he overreacted." Overreacted. The word hung absurd, like calling a hurricane a stiff breeze. Ethan snorted, stabbing a noodle with chopsticks, but his eyes were storm clouds, roiling with the boy's hurt he'd never quite outrun. "Tell her we're fine," he muttered when I passed the phone. I did, adding, "We need space, Mom, to figure us out." Silence stretched, then a sigh like wind through pines. "Just come for Christmas?" "For me, Christmas." The thought curdled, eggnog and twinkle lights masking the minefield of forced cheer. But Ethan squeezed my knee under the desk, a silent vote, and I caved. Maybe. It was a thread, thin but unbroken. The humanistic pull of family that doesn't snap easy, even when it stings. Campus life ramped up, a whirlwind of midterms and manifestos. I dragged Ethan to my sculpture class in the old foundry building on Mercer Street, where the air smelled of molten metal and possibility. He watched, rapt, as I welded wire into abstract forms. Hearts twisted with thorns, figures reaching through bars. "That's us," he said later, over beers at the Blue Note, jazz saxophone weaving melancholy through the smoke. Caged, but breaking free. I clinked my bottle to his, the foam head bitter on my tongue. Damn right. He enrolled part-time, art history lectures in Bob's library, where we'd steal kisses behind towering stacks, the scent of aged paper mingling with his soap. It was heady, this normalcy, holding hands on the subway to Washington Mews, where I'd sketch him against ivy-covered walls, charcoal smudging his jaw like war paint. Friends circled warily at first. Lila with her pierced brow arched in approval. Jake slapping Ethan's back with bro hugs that lingered a beat too long. Stepbro, huh? Wild. But acceptance bloomed, organic as Brooklyn weeds through sidewalk cracks. The betrayal's shadow lingered, though in Ethan's flinches at loud voices, the way he'd scan crowds like Dad might materialize from the falafel line. One night, after a screening of Moonlight at the IFC, raw and resonant, the screen a mirror to our quiet storms, he broke in the alley behind, back against graffiti-tagged brick, tears carving tracks down his face. What if it's always like this? Hiding, hurting. I pulled him close, the city's pulse thrumming around us. Taxis honking, laughter spilling from bars. Then we hurt together, build something stronger. My words felt small against the vastness of it, but he nodded, burying his face in my neck, and in that vulnerability, love felt less like lightning and more like roots, digging deep. Winter bit hard, frost etching fractals on dorm windows as December deepened. We decorated on a whim, string lights pilfered from Jake's ex, a Charlie Brown tree from the lot on Astor Place, ornaments of paper cranes I folded during cram sessions. Ethan hung a mistletoe sprig above the door, winking as he tugged me under it. Tradition, he murmured, lips brushing mine in a kiss that started sweet and deepened to something fiercer, hands roaming with the pent-up fire of stolen moments. We tumbled to the bed, clothes shedding like old skins, bodies mapping each other in the glow of twinkle lights, exploring with reverence, not rush, every touch of verse in the poem we'd been writing since 13. It wasn't without stumbles. A professor mistook us for roommates in office hours, the casual "you two make a cute pair," landing like a grenade when Ethan tensed beside me. We laughed it off later, but the microaggressions piled like snowdrifts. Stares on the street, a teammate's DM calling Ethan confused. Betrayal revisited in subtler forms. Mom's emails forwarding, "Pray the gay away" articles. Dad's radio silence a wall thicker than the Berlin. Yet we pushed, humanistic in our stubborn hope, volunteering at the Ali Forney Center, where queer youth shared stories that echoed ours, turning pain into solidarity. Christmas Eve, we drove south, the parkway a silver thread under street lamps. The house glowed with wreaths and warmth, but tension hummed like power lines. Dad waited on the porch, flannel shirt over a frame gone softer with age, eyes red-rimmed as he crushed Ethan in a hug that lingered awkward. Son. One word, gravelly with ghosts, but it cracked the ice. Mom wept over pie, pulling us into her kitchen orbit, the scent of cinnamon a balm. Katie was gone. Not right for me, Ethan told her flatly, and the table felt lighter, conversations skirting edges but not slicing. That night, in my old room with its faded lacrosse posters, Ethan and I lay on the twin bed that had witnessed our boyhood whispers. "This could be okay," he said, fingers laced with mine. "Not perfect, but okay." I turned, kissing his temple, the future unfolding like a sketch half-drawn. Human, messy hours. Spring thawed us further, cherry blossoms rioting pink along the East River as Ethan aced his first midterm, the grade a quiet rebellion. We celebrated with rooftop picnics in the village. Wine stolen from Jake's stash, stars pricking the smog like promises. Love deepened in layers, arguments over laundry and late nights, make-up kisses that tasted of compromise. Dad called once, voice halting. "Proud of you, kid. Both of you. Progress inch by inch." But climax brewed in summer's heat. A family barbecue in Jersey where old teammates crashed the gate, beers flowing loose. Slurs slithered out, casual as flies on ribs. Joke about Ethan's phase. And Dad, 3 sheets in, laughed too loud. Ethan snapped, chair scraping back, voice steady as steel. "Not a phase. Me. And if you can't handle that, handle this." He walked, pulling me with him, the screen door banging like punctuation. We didn't look back that time. Instead, we built forward. A shared lease in Brooklyn, canvases side by side in a Bushwick loft, his photos of my sculptures mingling with my portraits of him. Betrayal faded to scar tissue, conflict to conversation. The ending? No tidy bow, but a humanism hard one. Love as choice, family as verb. In America's vast, veined heart, we carved our space. Stepbrothers no more, but brothers in arms, lovers in light. Summer in New York is a beast. Humid jaws snapping at your heels, the asphalt radiating heat like a griddle, turning every stoop into a sauna. Ethan and I holed up in that Bushwick sublet. A third-floor walk-up with peeling wallpaper and a fire escape that groaned under our weight like an old man's complaint. It was ours, though, first real space, paid for with my barista tips and his gig shooting product photos for a startup that sold artisanal socks. Morning started slow. Coffee brewing on a hot plate, him shirtless at the window sketching skyline thumbnails, while I mixed pigments on the scarred kitchen table. "You're my muse?" I tease, daubing cerulean on his collarbone, watching it trail like a vein. He'd laugh, pulling me into flower-dusted chaos, kisses tasting of grounds and gratitude. But the idol cracked under July's weight. Dad's call came mid-afternoon, phone buzzing insistent on the sill as thunderheads gathered over Queens. Ethan answered, speaker on, his face draining to ash as Dad's voice boomed. Apologetic, almost laced with that Jersey bark. "Heard you kids shacked up. That's something. Look, I got tickets to the Mets game. Father's Day redo. Bring the boy." The boy. Me reduced to pronoun, but Ethan glanced my way, eyes questioning. "We'll think about it," he said, hanging up before the silence swallowed us. We didn't go. Instead, we walked the High Line that weekend. Rails to trails blooming wild with echinacea and bee balm. The city a distant hum below. "He's trying," Ethan said, hand in mine, tourists parting like Red Sea extras. "In his way." I nodded, but the scar twinged, memories of garage fists, Instagram lies. Trying wasn't enough. It had to be truth. "Let him prove it," I replied, stealing a kiss under a canopy of hops, the bitterness of it lingering like doubt. Campus beckoned fall, NYU's ivy turning russet as we dove back in. Me senior year, buried in thesis prints of fractured figures. Him sophomore, devouring Caravaggio slides that mirrored our shadowed start. Friends folded us in tighter. Game nights at Lila's with cards against humanity barbs that cut too close. Brunches where Jake grilled Ethan on switching teams, until we shut him down with eye rolls and mimosas. Betrayal's echo faded, but conflict simmered in subtler pots. Ethan's old teammates demanding invites laced with no hard feelings. Man. Each one a hook in his resolve. Then October hit with a gut punch. Mom's email arrived during life drawing, my phone lighting up with urgent, as the model shifted pose. "Dad's sick," it read, words blurring on the screen. "Prostate aggressive, the kind that sneaks up like a thief. Stage 3, doc said, chemo, radiation, the works." I showed Ethan in the quad, leaves crunching underfoot like brittle bones, his face crumpling as he read. "We have to go," he whispered, no hesitation, the pull of blood undeniable. Jersey felt smaller, shrunken by illness. The split level dimmed, curtains drawn against a sun that mocked. Dad lay in the recliner, gaunt under a Mets Afghan, oxygen hissing soft from a tank like a serpent's whisper. He looked up as we entered, eyes hazel like Ethan's but faded, locking on us with something raw. Boys. No growl, just gravel. Mom hovered, tea tray rattling. Her perm wilted from worry. We sat, the air thick with unsaid, until Dad cleared his throat. I was wrong. About you. Both. The confession hung, simple as that, years distilled to syllables. Ethan knelt, hand on Dad's knee, tears carving silent paths. I know, pop water under. Not quite forgiveness, too soon for absolutes, but a bridge, planks laid tentative. I hung back, sketching the scene in my mind. The man who'd shattered windows now fragile as the vase on the mantel. Humanism in the hospice light. Flaws forgiven not for perfection, but survival. Chemo cycles blurred holidays. Thanksgiving a quiet affair of mashed potatoes and morphine dreams. Dad rallied some, enough for walks in the backyard where he'd point out constellations to Ethan like old times, me trailing with sketchpad. You always saw things different, Alex, he said one dusk, voice wheezy but warm. Good different. Praise, unearned but welcome. Mending threads I'd thought severed. Winter deepened the vigil, snow blanketing Jersey like a shroud. Ethan's photos documented it. Dad's hand veined blue against white quilt. Mom's smile cracked but holding. We rotated weekends, the drive a ritual of podcasts and pit stops. Hands linked over the console. Love weathered it, deepening in hospital corridors. Stolen embraces in vending machine glow. Whispers of forever amid beeps and bleach. Climax crested in February. A nor'easter dumping feet of white as Dad weakened. We raced down from a gallery opening. My first solo show. Wire sculptures of entwined forms that sold 2 pieces to a collector who called them visceral. Arriving to snow-clogged roads and a house hushed. He passed at dawn, slipping away with Mom's hand in his, Ethan's forehead pressed to the bed rail. Me in the doorway sketching the light on his still face. One last portrait. The funeral was a blur of black suits and casseroles. Old teammates milling awkward. Slurs silenced by circumstance. Eulogy fell to Ethan, voice steady as he spoke of a man who taught him grit, grace, the hard road to righting wrongs. He loved fierce, even when he faltered, he said, eyes finding mine in the pews. I nodded, tears hot, the betrayal transmuted to understanding. Dad's rage born of fear, not hate, a father's flawed fight against a world shifting underfoot. After, we scattered ashes in the backyard. Under the oak where Ethan and I had carved initials as kids, AE, intertwined like our paths. Mom hugged us tight, whispering, "You're his legacy." Both. We drove back changed. The parkway clear now, spring whispering green at the medians. Brooklyn bloomed with us that year, loft expanded to a studio, Ethan's photos in a zine that caught eye at MoMA PS1. Conflicts arose, sure. Arguments over Dad's will. Split even, a final equity. Mom's remarriage talks too soon, but romance rooted deeper. Anniversaries marked with rooftop toasts. His proposal under those same high-line vines. Ring simple silver twisted like my wires. Forever? He asked, hazel eyes alight. Always? I said, sealing it with a kiss that tasted of all we'd endured. The ending unfolded gentle, humanistic tapestry. Family mended in fragments. Love a verb we conjugated daily. No tragedy's sharp edge, but a happy laced with hard-won wisdom. In America, where stepbrothers can become husbands, and broken windows lead to open skies. Marriage planning turned our loft into a war zone of Pinterest boards and takeout containers. Summer suns slanting through blinds like spotlights on the chaos. Ethan, ever the organizer from his lacrosse days, mapped timelines on a whiteboard. Ceremony at the Brooklyn Botanic Garden. Reception in a loft like ours but fancier. Vows first, he insisted, pen tapping. Then cake tasting. No eloping, Alex. We do this right. I laughed, smearing paint on his cheek from my latest canvas. A cityscape of lovers leaping bridges. Bossy. But yeah, right sounds good. Mom dove in headfirst, channeling grief into guest lists and floral charts. Her new beau, a mild accountant named Ted, trailing with quiet support. Your father's smiling down, she'd say, pinning boutonnieres, eyes misty but merry. Dad's absence ached less now, softened to stories at barbecues. His secret Sinatra records, the time he cried at Field of Dreams. Humanizing him piece by piece, turned villain to vessel, flawed father, loving in the end. Friends rallied, Lila officiating with her theater flair, Jake best man with speeches prepped to roast. But conflict brewed in whispers, Ethan's old coach emailing invites, supportive now. But Ethan deleted it, jaw tight. Some bridges burn for reason, betrayal's ghost, ever vigilant. We talked it out on the fire escape, city lights winking below, his head on my shoulder. Let 'em watch from afar, I said. This is ours. Fall wedding, leaves a crimson carpet underfoot as we stood vows in the garden's Japanese hill and pond. Koi gliding serene in the water. Ethan in linen suit, me in vest over paint-flecked shirt. Unconventional. Us. I climbed into your life uninvited, he said, voice carrying on crisp air. And found home. Promised to keep climbing with you. Tears blurred my response. You're my sketch, unfinished but perfect. Sealed with rings and a kiss that drew whoops from the aisle. Honeymoon in the Keys, Florida sun melting tensions like butter on conch fritters. We kayaked mangroves, spotting manatees gentle as grace. Nights tangled on hammocks with stars for ceiling. This is it, he murmured, fingers tracing my wedding band. The everything that changed. Romance peaked there, lazy and lush. No drama, just depth, bodies and souls synced like tides. Back in Brooklyn, life layered on. Ethan's photo exhibit at a Chelsea gallery. My tenure-track offer from Pratt. Mom visited, Ted in tow, dinners where stories flowed easy. Dad's fishing tales, our dorm escapades sanitized for laughs. Human connections woven tight. But climax loomed in winter's grip. A call from Mom shattering a snow globe morning. Ethan's aunt, your step-aunt, passed. Left a letter. For you both. We drove Jersey Ward, wipers slapping slush. The envelope sealed with wax like a relic. In her Victorian in Morristown, amid lace doilies and lavender sachets, we read it. Revelations of her own hidden love. A woman in the 50s who chose silence over scandal. Mirroring our start. Live loud, she urged. For those who couldn't, tears came, cathartic flood, betrayal of generations, now redeemed in ink. Spring brought renewal. Adoption papers for a rescue pup named Turner, for the painter. Park runs where Ethan chased frisbees, laughing free. Conflicts, minor career pulls, family holidays with Ted's awkward charm. But romance anchored. Anniversaries with custom portraits, his camera capturing my light. Years unspooled, humanistic arc. Dad's old Mets cap on our mantle, Mom's grandkids, via Lila's brood, tumbling through. We mentored at the center, stories shared in circles. Stepbrothers to husbands, windows to worlds. Ending? A quiet happy, laced with legacy. In America's sprawl, love's not conquest but constancy. Changing everything, one dawn at a time. The years post-vows felt like breathing underwater. Effortless in the deep end, bubbles of joy rising slow. Our loft evolved. Walls lined with Ethan's framed prints of urban vignettes. Subway serenades, fire escape gardens. Interspersed with my evolving series, abstract lovers in flux. Wires giving way to watercolor washes of serenity. Turner the Mutt claimed the rug. His snores a bass line to our mornings. Coffee steaming as Ethan scrolled freelance gigs. Me prepping lectures on queer iconography in modern art. Mom's integration deepened. Ted's quiet humor thawing us like spring thaw. Holidays shifted. Passover seders with his kin, blending brisket traditions with Mom's kugel. Laughter eclipsing old silences. Frank would have liked him. She'd confide over wine, her hand on mine. Steady like you boys. It stung sweet. Dad's memory a warm ember now, fanned by time's gentle wind. Career currents tugged, though, Ethan's wanderlust sparking a sabbatical pitch for a road trip photo book, American Intimacies, capturing queer couples coast to coast. Come? He asked, map unrolled on the bed. routes snaking like veins. I hesitated, 10-year clock ticking, but his eyes, pleading hazel one. Twist my arm. We packed the truck, upgraded from Dad's old Ford, Turner in the cab, hitting Route 66 in reverse. Brooklyn to Santa Fe, detours for diners and dawns. The road was revelation. Interviews intercarious with trans baristas, beach bonfires with elders who'd paved our path. Conflicts arose. A motel meltdown in Tulsa when Ethan's lens lingered too long on a couple's pain. My impatience flaring. Not every story's yours to frame. Words sharp as cacti, but we patched under star-pricked skies. Apologies inked in sand. Romance reignited nightly. Motels with neon hum. Bodies rediscovering in unfamiliar sheets. Tender maps of forgiveness. Back east, the book launched to acclaim. Panels where Ethan spoke fierce on visibility. Me moderating with sketches live-drawn. Betrayal's old specter? A trollish review calling it stepbro sensationalism. But we laughed it off over Ty, turning venom to fuel. Decade mark brought depth. Mom's 60th. A surprise cruise where seasick Ted bonded with us over Dramamine toasts. Ethan's gallery solo, Windows Within, featuring that shattered dorm pane reimagined in light boxes. Catharsis sold out. My book followed, Shades of Step, memoirs in mixed media, dedicating to the climber who stayed. Climax whispered in autumn's gold. A health scare. Ethan's routine check flagging a shadow on scan. Echo of Dad's thief. Waiting rooms blurred, hands clasped white-knuckled, but biopsy clear. Benign cyst, fate's false alarm. We emerged shaken, clinging vows renewed in Central Park. Leaves confetti underfoot. Everything changes, he said. But us? Constant. Humanistic close. Mentoring a kid from the center, wide-eyed artist with family fractures. Our story a lantern. Love's arc, dramatic dives, suspenseful silences, emotional swells. Landed romantic, real. In America's tapestry, stepbrothers wove husbands. Windows to wonders unending. Puppy chaos reigned that first year. Turner's chewed sneakers a badge of domesticity as Ethan and I navigated newlywed quirks. His socks on the floor, my paint tubes uncapped, arguments dissolving into tickle fights on the couch. Friends envied the ease. Lila's wedding envy over brunch mimosas. Jake's gross. You two are goals at poker nights. But undercurrents stirred. Ethan's freelance dry spells. My adjunct grind. Whispers of, is this enough? We sought balance in travel. A weekend in the Poconos, cabin wood smoke and stargazing, where he confessed, sometimes I miss the drama, makes us fight for it. I pulled him close by the fire, embers mirroring eyes. Drama's overrated. This us is the plot twist. Kisses kindled slow, reaffirming in flannel sheets. Love's quiet roar. Mom's circle widened. Ted proposing on a family hike in the Palisades. Her yes a bomb. Our role? Wingmen at the engagement party. Toasts blending toasts to absent fathers. Unity in the toasts. Dad's cap stayed mantle sentinel. A talisman. Career pivots came. Ethan's adjunct spot at SVA. Photo theory classes where students devoured his intimacies tales. My gallery rep sparked a residency in Marfa, Texas. Vast skies, minimalism mirroring our pared-down life. He joined for a month. RV parked under windmills. Nights debating Duchamp over lone stars. Conflict, isolation's bite. My immersion clashing his itch for city pulse. Don't vanish on me, he joked, but eyes held fear. We compromised. Weekly calls, his visits syncing with full moons. Romance remote but resilient. Video dates with wine. Packages of Texas dust in envelopes. Return brought bloom. Joint exhibit entwined frames. My sculptures lit by his projections. Critics hailing, synergistic souls. Sales funded a down payment. Bed-Stewie brownstone. Backyard for Turner to dig. Rooms for future kids. Via surrogacy dreams deferred. Decade's cusp. A crossroads. Ethan's book tour clashing my sabbatical. Fight erupted over dinner. Voices rising. Plates pushed. Choose us, he yelled, hurt raw. I stormed out. Walking blocks till reason returned. Apology texted, "You're my horizon." Reconciliation raw, tear-streaked. Bodies bridging gaps in the brownstone's hush. Passion reborn from ashes. Humanism prevailed. Therapy tandem, unpacking step scars. Community panels, sharing for the closeted. Ending etched in everyday, morning coffees, evening walks, love's narrative. From dorm shatter to hearth glow, everything changed, gloriously.